Barcelona against the wall, when bureaucracy becomes a weapon of war. The truth has exploded into the open today, a truth that some are desperately trying to hide under mountains of files and sanitized press releases. The war between Javier Tebas and FC Barcelona has reached a point of no return, and the tremors are now being felt from the air-conditioned offices of La Liga to the sacred pitch of Camp Nou. The season has barely begun, and once again, Barcelona is struggling through a Kafkaesque labyrinth of registrations, impossible deadlines, endless audit reports, and convoluted interpretations of regulations that seem written in shifting characters whenever it concerns the Blaugrana. This is not a coincidence. This is not a minor detail. This is not insignificant. While some celebrate administrative victories in the shadows, Barcelona fights for the most basic right of an elite club, the right to field its players under the same conditions as its rivals. And today, under the spotlight of a media machine running at full speed, it is time to shout it loud and clear. Barcelona will not bow its head. Not this time. Not ever. If you are a die-hard Barcelona fan, if you feel in your gut the injustice that reeks of manipulation, subscribe now, like this video, and above all, tell me in the comments, do you see an ounce of neutrality in the way the rules are applied to Barcelona? Or do you, like me, feel that a different measuring stick is pulled out whenever it concerns our club? Because if you hear these words, you know exactly what I'm talking about. La Liga has started, and yet key players in the squad still depend on authorizations, independent medical counter-examinations, salary cap margins calculated to the last cent, and temporary guarantees that loom like a shadow over the team's preparation. We are served the same loop over and over, the ever-present one-for-one rule, questions about what does or does not count in the salary cap calculation, the "you're missing this," the "you still need that." And, as if by chance, this noise only grows louder when the Blaugrana crest appears on the horizon. This is not about denying controls, no. It's about demanding clear, equal rules for everyone, applied without spectacle, without staging, without the theatrics that reek of bad faith. Today more than ever, Barcelonismo must raise its voice, because what is at stake is not just a simple administrative formality. It is the very dignity of the club. It is its right to compete without having to crawl. Let's call things by their name. Barcelona has been living for years under a shifting regulatory framework, rigid and too often questionable in its interpretation. We are told that the rules are the same for everyone, but reality shows that as soon as Barcelona tries to register a player, obstacles multiply as if by magic. This pre-season and the start of the league are glaring proof. Players, starters, key pieces of Hansi Flick's project, find themselves hostage to administrative procedures 3 days before kickoff. We are talking about absolutely central profiles in the tactical scheme, decisions that directly impact the team's preparation in the most crucial week of the year. The context: simple to explain, complex to resolve. La Liga imposes a salary cap based on revenue, expenses, audits, and projections. So far, everyone agrees. But when Barcelona activates perfectly legal levers, when it restructures contracts, when it finds creative solutions to comply with this framework, suddenly the noise begins. We question the how, the when, the does it really count, the there's still a stamp missing. Everything becomes complicated. And just when the team needs certainty, doubts are thrown like pebbles in its wheels. Result: a start to the season under pressure, with a squad training with players who, on paper, might not be eligible at the first whistle. This uncertainty is neither minor nor innocent. It weighs on morale, on preparation, on the narrative surrounding the club. Let's not forget the recent episodes that illustrate how systematic these frictions have become: mid-season deregistrations, followed by re-registrations under pressure from higher authorities, medical commissions deciding whether a long-term injury opens a window to register a replacement, future revenue operations, like the commercialization of VIP areas in the new Camp Nou, subjected to validation processes that, by a happy coincidence, take just enough time to coincide with the closing of the market. Is Barcelona not providing the requested documents? Is Barcelona not following the procedures to the letter? Yes, it is. But the timing always works against us. Meanwhile, the discourse machine, well-oiled since the presidency of La Liga, installs the idea that Barcelona is the problem, that Barcelona is unfair, that Barcelona is a headache. As if it were us who invented these rules. As if it were us who turned a technical process into a media soap opera. There is a truth that is inconvenient. Barcelona is scrutinized, dissected, and put under the microscope in a way that is in no way symmetrical with what happens elsewhere. Other clubs, other situations, other deadlines are resolved quietly, without drums or trumpets, without moral lessons in press conferences. With Barcelona, on the other hand, everything becomes a public debate. Figures are leaked, plans are taken out of context, and decisions that are actually tools provided by the regulations themselves are presented as reckless risks. Meanwhile, the players must keep a cool head, the coach must prepare for a match with pieces he doesn't know if he can use, and the club must chase authorizations in a race against time that shouldn't even exist if the treatment were fair. And here comes the inevitable protagonist of this absurd play, Javier Tebas. Always present, always quick to declare that Barcelona knows what it has to do, that it isn't within the rules, that there's not much left to resolve, but I won't say what. Really? Is that the role of an institution? Instead of facilitating procedures, ensuring that the process remains technical and not media-driven, we get a La Liga president who comments in real time, who forces the issue, who conditions, who sends messages that end up as headlines delivered like clubs. The intended effect is clear: to put pressure on the club, on Laporta, on Flick, on the players themselves, who read in the press that they might not be able to wear the jersey. And in this macabre dance, the narrative that Barcelona is the one complicating things will always slip in, as if the strategy of attrition wasn't coming from the outside. No one denies the difficult economic context that the club has been dragging along for years, nor the complex decisions made by the board to overcome it. Selling future assets, salary adjustments, reorganizing spending, and non-traditional revenue operations. Barcelona is doing what it must to return to the one-for-one rule, and significant steps have already been taken in that direction. But the regulations, by design and interpretation, penalize the transition. You are locked in a narrow corridor, and if you can't immediately present the perfect picture, you are subjected to administrative semi-bondage. The sporting consequences are immediate: a coach who cannot work with peace of mind, a dressing room that reeks of instability, a pre-season tainted by uncertainties, and planning for the playing time of young players and new recruits that resembles an impossible Sudoku. No one talks about this in the places where it should be understood better than anywhere else: the competitive impact. The question is simple and direct. Why does the debate with Barcelona always have to happen in the public square and at the last second? Because that's how the idea of chaos, improvisation, and guilt is constructed. Because that's how the narrative of a club that, despite everything, competes and wins is eroded. Because that's how negotiations with players, who logically want certainty before signing, are also disrupted: registration security, clarity on their status, short-term peace of mind. And yet, against all odds, Barcelona shows up, competes, and keeps its sporting project alive. This resilience bothers those who would prefer to see the club on its knees. And that's why every August, we get the same episode with a different title: the Tebas vs. Barcelona battle. Hansi Flick's dilemma. For a coach, the week of the first match demands certainty. Who is available? Who isn't? Who can last 90 minutes? Who arrives with partial preparation? Which automatisms have been worked on? What's the backup plan if the match takes a different turn? When players still depend on their registration, all of this gets distorted. You prepare a build-up with a specific goalkeeper, and if his license isn't validated in 48 hours, you have to start over. You design a pressing system with a striker attacking certain spaces, and if his registration isn't approved by the transfer deadline, you change profiles and lower your ambitions. You calculate midfield rotations based on a specific quota, and you end up overusing the players you already have, risking avoidable overload. The human group isn't impervious to this. Players read, listen, and sense the external temperature. A new arrival, full of excitement, sees headlines like, "He won't be able to play from the start," and goes from euphoria to anxiety in 2 days. A young player from LAMINE, who has earned his place through merit, lives with a knot in his stomach because of a formality that should have been resolved days ago. Who has to face this in press conferences? The coach, who finds himself answering questions about administrative issues instead of tactics. What do the rivals say? Nothing clear, because it suits them for Barcelona to start the season with its boots full of thorns. The staff maintains a modular plan, with variants, relying on the elasticity of a group that has already shown its character. But it must be said, it shouldn't be like this. Not every August. Not every season. Not for a club that single-handedly pulls the Liga's cart on the world stage. The micro-level impact. If we delve into the details, at the micro, tactical level, a registration problem isn't just one fewer name on the team sheet. It's the loss of a profile that has been worked on for weeks. It's switching from a 3+2 build-up to a 2+3 scheme if a center-back lacking in ball progression isn't available. It's altering the strong triangle on the right flank if the intended winger isn't administratively cleared. It's giving up certain asymmetric pressing tactics if the striker tasked with pressing back passes can't be fielded. All of this turns the first match, which should be a proof of concept for the new season, into an exam with questions changed at the last minute before entering the room. So, who is responsible? Those who turn a technical process into a public ceremony of obstacles? Those who delay validations that could have been approved long ago? Those who hide behind, "There's still a little something missing," knowing full well that every day counts? What's admirable is that Barcelona doesn't whine. It works. It activates guarantees, circulates paperwork, organizes meetings, presents endorsements, obtains medical certificates, undergoes audits, reviews criteria, and seeks the yes while respecting the framework. And when that yes finally arrives, just before kickoff, everyone acts as if nothing happened. And yet, something did happen, a week of induced uncertainty, a pre-season ruined by doubts that should have been resolved discreetly. Another episode of the same script, and we're still here saying out loud what many think quietly. Barcelona is held to higher standards and given less time. The economic core of the issue. Let's get to the heart of the economic matter, because that's where the core of the excuse lies. The narrative of "there's no margin" conveniently ignores the fact that the club has implemented operations specifically designed to generate that margin. We're talking about new revenue streams, the exploitation of premium stadium spaces, and asset reorganization. Work has been done to ensure certain operations are accounted for in the appropriate financial year. These files have been presented to auditors, requirements have been met, and steps have been taken for La Liga to incorporate these figures into its salary cap calculation. What happens? Validations drag on, details are nitpicked, reconfirmations are requested, and meanwhile, the calendar doesn't wait. By a happy coincidence, the deadlines never align with the start of the season. Let's be clear, no one disputes the need for control. What is contested is the punitive emphasis and the theatricality of the process when it comes to Barcelona. Every euro is scrutinized. Every mechanism is examined as if it were a mockery of the rules. Every approval seems like a favor, when it's actually a tool provided by the regulations. And at the same time, from the megaphone of the La Liga presidency, reassuring messages like, "It will be resolved," are broadcast. So, why the spectacle? Why this permanent staging that places the club at the center of a cliffhanger series? Because the narrative sells. Because it's more profitable to talk about Barcelona's mess than to highlight the fact that the club is complying, working, and steering the entity toward stability without sacrificing its competitiveness. There's another angle that few dare to admit. Barcelona doesn't just compete against rivals on the pitch, it also competes in the market. A club with its history and prestige, which attracts talent from around the world, needs regulatory certainty to finalize its operations. When you tell a player, "Wait until we can register you," that player, his entourage, and his current club ask, "What if it doesn't work out?" This uncertainty is a weapon for those who want Barcelona not to strengthen its squad. And yet, despite this, Barcelona recruits, promotes youth from La Masia, reorganizes, and builds. The message should be clear: stop using financial regulations as a tool for public intimidation. If something needs validation, validate it. If something needs correction, correct it. But without the spectacle, without the headlines, without the sensationalist titles that, by some happy coincidence, always emerge at key moments. Historical evidence is stubborn. This administrative pressure repeats itself year after year, transfer window after transfer window, and Barcelona, far from breaking, adapts and comes out on top. This stress could be avoided if the rules were applied technically and deadlines were reasonable. But when there's a will to slow things down, things slow down. Barcelonismo is not naive. Today, as the alarms start ringing again, what's needed is the same firmness as always. Barcelona does not kneel before the media narrative. It registers, competes, and wins, with its audits, its endorsements, its medical reports, with everything required, because this club is serious, and this sporting project will not be defined by an office playing for extra time. A double standard in plain sight. Let's compare this with other recent cases in La Liga. We've seen other club presidents turn registration processes into a public spectacle. We've seen other teams subjected to explanatory press conferences about the whys and why nots in the middle of August. We've seen massive headlines questioning whether a player from another club will be able to play 3 days before the first match. We know the answer. The difference in treatment isn't an impression, it's a pattern. Others' problems are minimized. Barcelona's are dissected down to the last cent. When Barcelona uses mechanisms provided by the regulations, it's called tricks. When others do similar financial engineering, it's called solutions. This double standard is at the heart of the controversy raging today. This battle is bigger than Tebas versus Barcelona. This isn't just Tebas versus Barcelona. It's Tebas versus a certain vision of professional football in Spain. Either we promote a framework of serious, technical, and discreet control with equal treatment for all, or we perpetuate a circus where communication is used as a tool for pressure and stigmatization. Barcelona isn't asking for privileges. It's demanding respect. If the club has to present a temporary guarantee to adjust a short-term imbalance, let it be accepted for what it is, a tool provided by the rules, not a cardinal sin. If the club proves a long-term injury with an independent report, validate the corresponding move without making a fuss. If revenue is properly structured, account for it. It's that simple. What does all this circus achieve? Poisoning public debate and eroding the club's image among its own fans. Do we want the Cule to feel like we're always on the edge of a cliff, always in emergency mode, forced to swallow the idea that we are the problem? No. The problem is using the institution that should regulate as a media pulpit. The problem is creating a climate of permanent suspicion around Barcelona. The problem is putting sticks in the wheels of a club that, by its very dimension, elevates La Liga's product in the eyes of the world. Barcelona doesn't ask for favors, it demands respect. And while it does, it keeps competing, developing its youth, and defending a style of play that is non-negotiable. The reality on the ground. Let's break down the start of this season. Barcelona has done its homework to register its players. It has provided guarantees when needed. It has activated pathways that the regulations themselves allow for exceptional cases, such as covering long-term injuries in key positions. Additionally, it has worked to regularize revenues that should be part of this season's salary cap calculation. So what's missing? What's missing is for those who need to validate to actually validate. What's missing is for procedures not to be used as leverage. What's missing is for the almost not to be turned into a weapon to condition the coach's choices. If a goalkeeper arrives to fill a spot left by a long-term injury, register him without drama. If a forward arrives with all his contractual parameters in order, he shouldn't have to live under the threat of a headline like, "He might miss the start of the season until the last second." Serious football operates without spotlights on the corridors. Barcelona hasn't just waited, it has moved responsibly. Temporary economic guarantees assumed by the board to buy time, commercial operations under audit, salary and departure management to free up wage space, integration of La Masia youth into the first team to have real alternatives, who, by the way, are a sporting heritage. All of this while training, traveling, playing friendlies, and preparing for the first objective, starting with a win. There are clubs that, at this hour, would be whining. Barcelona competes in the mud and on the red carpet with the same determination. That's its DNA. That's what bothers some people. The season starts under the same old pressure. The season begins, and once again, the club finds itself pushing against a bureaucratic wall that, by some happy coincidence, always stands taller when there's a Blaugrana jersey on the other side. And yet, Barcelona doesn't just comply, it competes. It presents guarantees when required, accredits long-term injuries with independent commissions when necessary, organizes revenues so they are accounted for rigorously, and grits its teeth when the regulator decides that the clock is a weapon. We're not asking for privileges. We're demanding neutrality. We're not asking for shortcuts. We're asking for registrations not to be turned into a spectacle. If you're a die-hard Football Club Barcelona fan, subscribe now and tell me what you think. Should the club raise its public tone against La Liga? What measures would you like to see implemented to shield the start of future seasons? I'm reading your comments, Cule, because this community doesn't give up, this team doesn't bend, and this crest isn't up for negotiation. Today, they tried to turn registrations into a soap opera. Tomorrow, Barcelona will turn the pitch into a verdict. And that verdict, as always, will bear one signature, Blaugrana.